Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the MidBeach Neighborhood Association's January 2023 meeting. We welcome everyone. We're excited to see so many of you joining us. We were worried many of you are still enjoying this beautiful holiday break. As a quick reminder, our next meeting, February 1st, will be in person. We will have Commissioner Mickey Steinberg that represents our condominiums and hotels from 55th and North from at the county, and Eileen Higgins, who represents our condominiums from 24th to 55th. In addition, we will also have our school board member with us in February. The meeting will be in person at the Blue Diamond, so please go ahead and join us in person. We're going to ask everybody to mute. And before I begin and do the welcome or introductions, I just want to take a brief moment to thank you all for your continued support for MBNA. Especially Deborah Lake. I took a sabbatical last fall, and she, as the vice president of MBNA, was able to seamlessly host these meetings and manage all of the communications. So I thank you all for your support. Under the leadership of Oscar Vasquez, the Beach and Water Quality Working Group remained active and productive during that time. I'm looking forward to seeing what they will make of this coming month. As we heard earlier today, we have those folks from the city with us to talk about the beach concessions, sargassum, and some of the other items that we'll hear more at our beach and water quality meetings. Those are the third Wednesday of every month at 4 p.m. and I encourage you all to attend. A very special thanks to Alicia Casanova, ex officio executive board member, who, aside from chairing 2 of our working groups, single-handedly updates our website, makes this meeting that is recorded available to everyone. And so if you have any edits or suggestions for our website, please go ahead and send them to us and we'll forward those along. Justin Jacobs, who's also here with us today, is our board treasurer. And he has really worked to figure out the best method to help with invoicing. Last year was somewhat of a transition year after COVID. And so the hotels, we still were not charging hotel member dues, but this coming year we will. And for condominiums that did not have a chance to pay your 2022 dues, you'll receive both $50 for each one, so $100 for now. If you've already paid those dues, you'll only receive an invoice for 2023. If you're like some of our members who paid them late in the year, no worries, you can hold on to it and pay when you feel comfortable. We certainly would like to get those all resolved by December at latest. I would also like to welcome Esteban Porcelli. He continues to serve as our MBNA representative on the Transportation, Parking, Bicycle, Pedestrian Facilities Committee of Miami Beach. He's recently brought up the issue that many of the members were discussing with EV chargers and having those more prevalent or efficient and more prevalent within our MidBeach area between 24th and 63rd Street along Indian Creek Drive and Collins Avenue. He also chairs the Indian Creek Working Group and sends us drones and videos of all the progress of construction, and he'll share a little more later today. Thank you, Esteban, for being with us. We have 2 executive board members, Jose Flores from The Addition and Michelle Redlick representing the Fountain Blue, and they have been exploring ways to further engage and represent the interests of the hotels in the area. Some of the topics that most interest our hotel members seem to be sargassum, beach walk, public space activations. And we're going to continue to hear a little more today. And so with that, I'm going to move on to today's agenda. We'll talk a little bit of an overview of where we are from 2022, what we plan to accomplish in 2023. We're going to dive deep into the concession issue that will hopefully be heard at neighborhoods, but we'd like to hear a little more from staff of where they are in the process. That was an item that came to us originally in February of 2022, so it's almost been a year. And we're looking forward to that discussion. We'll also be talking about the Miami Beach Drive, which to some is a promenade, to others is a sidewalk, but it is the back of several of our member hotels, and we'd like to discuss it in detail. And that's not to say we won't mention the beach walk and other issues that I know many of you have brought up, the condo regulations and other items. We'll go ahead and touch on those as well. So welcome everyone, special welcome to the executive board. We're going to do a quick roll call before we continue. This meeting is called to order. Deborah Lake.
Here, present.
Thank you. Justin Jacobs.
Here.
Esteban Porcelli.
Yes, here.
Yeah. Oscar Vasquez. Absent. Alicia Casanova. Michelle Rudlick.
Here.
Okay. Jose Flores. Okay. So we have quorum. We'll go ahead and begin the meeting. Our minutes from the last meeting, we're going to go ahead and hold off until our in-person meeting in February to be able to review and approve. All the drafts of our minutes are available on the website. If you need any of the packets or information for your board of directors, management, or hotel owners, please feel free to reach out to us directly at MBNA@midbeachna.com, and we'll go ahead and provide you any information you might need. So welcome everyone. We have some special guests here with us today. I do see some elected officials. Is it correct that Representative Basabe is with us today? If you'd like to unmute and say hello.
Yes, ma'am. Hello, everybody. Happy New Year.
Welcome. How does it feel? I heard you're up in Tallahassee and representing our interest.
Yes, I have to say the reception I've had here is overwhelming. People have just been so excited to learn more about the issues of the district. They're eager to guide me and help me and educate me on ways to make improvements. The energy is high, and I'm having a great time. I'm learning a lot. I'm exhausted. They're full days, but it's incredible. Really, really smart people. And it's interesting because I guess I had my own perception of it, and then you get here and people are really working together. People from both sides of the aisle are talking, and there's a lot of commitment. I'm really excited to be part of this opportunity. So I'm looking forward to great things.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you. We feel honored that you took the time to meet with us today. I just want to quickly remind that the reason why MBNA exists, or the impetus to our existence, was the project on Collins Avenue. When 47th to 63rd or 58th were told that out of the 10 crosswalks, it would be reduced to 5, and that it was going to look very different than what the community's vision was for our corridor and for our neighborhood. And so as that project continues to unfold, we look forward to working with you closely and collaborating with the Florida Department of Transportation and ensuring that the project is implemented in a way that reflects those the vision and the interest of your constituents. So thank you so much for being with us. Feel free to jump off or join.
I will, yeah. I have to excuse myself because I do have another appointment at the same time. I just wanted to say hi, but also want to let you know I'm going to post on your chat my committees. So if anybody has any suggestions or concerns that can help educate me on what else I need to look into, but transportation is one of my subcommittees, and I know we've got a lot to do. So I'm looking forward to bringing that relationship to a strong and quick and just functional, purpose for us. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being with us. And we also have today our local commissioner that I think if we hand out an award to someone who hasn't missed a meeting and I don't know how many months, it wouldn't be me, it would be Commissioner Minor.
Yeah, I'm great to see everyone. Happy New Year.
It's great to see you. We have a few questions for you today. I know that you always have so much going on, but feel free to jump in and stay engaged throughout today's conversation. Any comments for the new year? Anything you want to share with us?
It feels like it hasn't slowed down. It's the same. It's always the quality of life stuff, policing, crime. I'll tell you, I've had a lot of complaints recently, and I've been passing this along and talking with our city manager and police chief continuously about the beach walk and the motorbikes and scooters coming down. And so I've been really trying to make a push on that as well.
Great. We're going to get to that item in a moment, but we'd like to hear a little more details of what that push entails, if you'd like to hang on for a few minutes. Sure. And we also have representatives here with us. Well, I believe I did see Monica, the aide to Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez. Monica, are you with us?
Hi, I'm here. Hello, thanks for having me. I'm here to represent Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez. So if anyone needs anything, I'll put my email address in the chat and please reach out. Thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thanks, Monica, so much for joining us. Adrian Gonzalez, I also see that you're with us today. Are you working now with the representative, or what is your role with their office, the district office?
Hello, everybody, and Happy New Year to you. I'm actually going to be the official, I guess, district aide / chief of staff for Fabian starting on Monday. So thank you so much for having me here.
Great. We can't wait to connect and collaborate with you on some of those topics we mentioned earlier. I know that Jose Flores, our MBNA board member and representative of the edition, is also with us today. So thank you both, Jose and Michelle. Both of our hotel reps are here representing their respective properties. Anyone else that I've missed from the elected officials?
Daniel Reyes is on too.
Oh, sorry, Danny. Danny, are you there?
Hi, yeah. Hi, everyone. Happy New Year.
Thanks so much. So Daniel Reyes represents Commissioner Eileen Higgins from District 5, Miami-Dade County, and they will be presenting in person on February 1st. And we've already started crafting an agenda. We haven't co-designed it quite yet, so I don't want to say too much or commit to too much without getting checked in with all of our guest speakers. But there are several items that we've heard from many of you. Again, if you have some issues around condo regulations or other things that you feel the county might have a say or are able to help out, feel free to email us and we'll go ahead and communicate that when we're designing the agenda.
And Annie, I see Captain Baldwin, and then if we could just address two more names. I don't know who Rodney Knowles is, and iPhone 3.
Okay, great, thank you. So Captain Baldwin, welcome.
Kevin is here too.
Captain Baldwin?
Yeah, good evening. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Is there any particular item that you wanted to address today?
No, I'll just be available if anything comes up. If you guys need anything, I'm here.
Thanks so much. I think Beach Walk, and I know you're so busy, so if we'll probably try to address that a little earlier in the meeting, and then feel free to stay or go ahead.
Sure.
So Rodney Knowles works with, I believe, Joe Gomez at the city of Miami Beach. He used to be landscape, but he's changed. So Rodney, just share with us a little bit where, I guess the members aren't as familiar, or we're not sure where you are and what position you're in right now.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rodney Knowles with the City of Miami Beach Public Works Department. I'm the Assistant Director of the Public Works Department, formerly of Green Space Management. Particularly sanitation and green space fall under my purview. So I'm still actively involved with green space, but since then, sanitation issues have also come to me. Joe is on vacation right now. I'm attending in his stead, and I'm here to answer any questions that I can. I know that you guys have some issues you want to talk about, and I'm at your disposal. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Knowles, for joining us. And I believe the Miami Beach Drive was the main item for you for today.
Sure.
Thank you. And I have one more person, iPhone 3. iPhone 3, if you could please identify yourself. If you're logging in and you could possibly be an iPhone 3, if you could please identify yourself.
I'm thinking it might be me, Anna Marie.
Yes.
It's Alexis.
Oh,
Is that
hi,
who?
Alexis.
Yeah, I'm thinking. Yeah, I have to rename my account. So I apologize for that. But Happy New Year.
No problem. And Alexis,
I think it's me.
It is. Alexis, you're with 56
Okay,
Veteran, is it?
Yes. Yes.
So you have been renamed. So glad we didn't kick you out.
I have been. Let me just know. I'm in the dark over here with my puppies on the beach. Look how beautiful the moon. Thought I'd share that with you. But anyhow, okay. Nice seeing you.
It's wonderful to see you too. Thank you so much, Alexis. So it is a really pretty night, and I thank you all for being with us. We're going to go through our two main items, and then we'll do updates of the committees, talk a little bit about what we foresee for this coming year, and then close it out with what's to come in the following months. The first, there's three main items. The two that are involved with the city, which we'll talk about those first, and then we'll have an internal discussion about communications at MBNA, and then we'll go through the committees. And And we'll start with the Beach Walk Committee so that Captain can be part of that conversation before we move on to the other committees. So that's going to change the order a little bit if the board is okay with that. Don't know if I need a motion for that, but we'll just go ahead and begin. So the first item is Miami Beach Drive. Is everyone familiar with Miami Beach Drive? It's behind the Atlantis Club, behind Trenton Towers. It's like a small promenade. It's parallel to the beach walk. It's fairly large, and MBNA had done a Freedom of Information Act request or FOIA request to the city. We had sent an email to the city clerk requesting to understand who has to maintain this property, who is involved or responsible for the trash and for the keeping of this property. And through that process, we received several ordinances. And from our interpretation, these ordinances would basically say it's the property owner's responsibilities. And I guess our question or our questions as an organization were that when we look at the property appraisals parcels, half of that or portions of that look like it's actually City of Miami Beach. And secondly, the classification of Miami Beach Drive, we had understood it was a public space or a promenade, not necessarily a swale and sidewalk, which is what the ordinances that we had received reflected. And so if the city can kind of give us a little bit of a feedback. But before we do that, I'd like for the members that are on this call that are from that area, if anybody would like to comment, the floor is open before the city will describe the drive. Is anyone here that would like to just to mention this item or discuss this item? Okay, hear none. Mr. Knowles, the floor is yours.
Thank you. As far as Miami Beach Drive is concerned, the city's understanding and the interpretation has always been that the maintenance responsibility for Miami Beach Drive, according to the city code in two areas in particular, chapter 126, which is related to landscape maintenance, and I think it's chapter 96 with regard to sidewalk cleanliness, is that Miami Beach Drive is a right-of-way, and the responsibility up to the center line of the right-of-way falls on the adjacent property owners. In this specific area, the same entity owns both the east and west sides of that area. So if you go up to the center line on the east and west sides, that entire strip of Miami Beach Drive that is abutting those private properties, the maintenance of that area falls on adjacent property owners. We did some searching and we tried to find any precedents that the city intervened and performed any kind of maintenance, et cetera, in those areas where we can say with certainty that we have assumed that responsibility in the past, and we have not been able to find anything regarding the hardscape. And if you look at the landscaping, it's obvious that a lot of the landscaping that exists in that area is very similar on the east and west sides, because I think the adjacent property owners treat the section of Miami Beach Drive that abuts their property as an extension of their property, because you have their amenities on the east, the residential property in the west, and the landscaping matches. So if you go through that corridor, you'll see that the landscaping changes depending on the taste and the design of the properties that abut that area. That's what we've been able to find, and we're going strictly off of code. And it's not, sorry, go ahead, yes.
Sorry to interrupt. There is no maintenance agreement between these properties and the city?
No, because typically the city will enter into a maintenance agreement if there's an unusual circumstance. Let's say, for example, the property was redeveloped and there was some sort of design or something out of the ordinary that the property owner wanted to implement. It would go through its various permits and iterations and approvals, and part of that would be this maintenance agreement that, you know, we understand that you want to do this more elaborate thing or this unusual thing, but we want to confirm that you understand that the responsibility to maintain is yours. In the absence of anything that's super out of the ordinary, the city's code is always in effect. It's not that the code disappears depending on what the area is. The code is the code. The code is in place, and I think that would be almost redundant to have a separate maintenance agreement for every single property that abuts the right of way. So the code is this overarching guide that basically ties all of that together. So that's the way that the city has interpreted that. And it's not just this area, but throughout the city, we get this question a lot regarding who maintains the swale. Is it city property? Yes, it's city property, but it abuts your private property, and the responsibility to maintain falls on you.
This is a very large, this is not a swale or a sidewalk. This is like a promenade, and large trucks that are city owned or county trucks come in and disrupt and ruin the ground of it, and it lifts pieces up and folks trip and they fall, and all of that maintenance you're saying is a responsibility of property owners?
The adjacent property owners, that's correct.
Okay, well,
there shouldn't be large vehicles going through there on a regular basis. I think I saw a photograph recently of a police cruiser in that space. But most of the time that I've seen that space in my time with the city, it's usually either small vehicles, small utility vehicles like a gator or a cart of some sort, and mostly pedestrians walking through it.
But you were here as you were part of the city during the beach walk construction, no?
Yes.
Okay. I just remember there being several vehicles, a lot of movement. This area is very poorly maintained, and it seems somewhat, especially with all of the new regulations on condominiums, somewhat unfair to put that onto the property owners. I understand their frustration. I mean, it doesn't even sound logical. I think they were all under the impression there was some type of a maintenance agreement in place, but that you've clarified there's not one, and that the code supersedes anything, and that they are responsible, fully responsible. So they would have to then collectively come together and do something for this entire area, and the city would not be funding any of this.
In areas that abut their actual property. And that's correct.
But you're saying there is not a portion of Miami Beach Drive that is the city of Miami Beach's responsibility, or is there?
Not to my understanding, no.
Okay. Are there any questions from any of the members? Any comments from any elected officials?
Rodney, I'm sorry, just a question. This is Justin Jacobs at the MBNA board. A question. I just want to clarify. You said both the landscape and the hardscape. So meaning the pavers that are the actual promenade itself.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anne Marie, I have a question. This is Al Gross, Oceanfront Plaza. Are we talking about the walkway that stretches between the one and the addition?
No, sir. We're discussing what would be yes, pardon me. Yes, it's the walkway stretching between the one hotel at 24th going north to the addition. We're not talking about the beach walk on the eastern side. We're talking about the western one that's between the Traymore Hotel and all those properties on Collins Avenue. And then most of those properties, if not all of them, have like where their amenities are and the pools and the cabanas. There's that secondary structure. So that one that's there in the middle there.
Yeah, I'm on Oceanfront Plaza, so I'm on that stretch. I'm on 26th Street. I know that our association pays for the maintenance of the palm trees and all that stuff. I would like to say that I know that cars are not supposed to be on there, but there are quite a bit of cars on there. I would say on a regular basis, there's vehicles on there.
And thank you for that. What we'll do is, we'll work with our police partners. I know at the addition, there's actually barricades that collapse, and I've seen those collapse. I'm not sure off the top of my head who's responsible to keep those secured, if it's our park rangers or if those are private as well. But what we'll do is we'll check in with police if that's something that's enforceable, to have the vehicles off the area.
Thank you.
sharing my screen right now of the MBNA's website. And so this is one of our projects of interest. And we've actually always called it, Mr. Knowles, the Miami Beach Drive Promenade, because that's how we had understood. We thought it was a promenade. We didn't think of it as a sidewalk or a swale or a right of way that the properties take care of. And so these are some of the videos and the pictures, some of the maintenance. This is right here. There's a little tractor of sorts on it. There's another vehicle here. I think when the beach walk was being constructed, there was a lot of movement. There was a lot of damage that has happened into this area. There's flooding in the area. You can see here, it looks like they would need for the right of way to be elevated. Are you saying that this would also fall within the responsibility of the property owners?
Maintenance of the area would fall on the adjacent property owners. With regard to demolishing this area and raising the elevation, I'm not certain how that would be handled. Maybe that's a larger question if the area needs to be reconstructed in some way, and that's something that I guess you can talk to the city about and we can have that conversation. But I think that some of the conditions that you're showing me exceed routine maintenance.
Okay. And so what would be our next steps? I want to close this item up, but what are our next steps? I know we've had some meetings in October. Oscar Vasquez had a meeting. We were, with the city. What are the next steps? Is there funding for resiliency, for addressing flooding? Would we be able to tap into that kind of funding to help with this area? Is there funding to make this a promenade? I think that what MBNA's vision is clearly demonstrated here in the pictures below, something that is really a gathering space. It's something that we want to talk about later in our public space committee. One of our goals for 2023 is to create more gathering spaces within the MidBeach area between 24th and 63rd through those condo canyons. And so is there any kind of resiliency funding or something that we would be able to tag this project onto?
I'm unable to speak to the funding in the Environment Sustainability Department or any of their resiliency funding. But based off the images that you're showing me, what the aspirational goal is, that looks like a significant capital project. So it's ambitious. I'm not saying that it's not doable, but that is definitely way beyond just a grade fix or just some routine maintenance.
And I think, Anne Marie, you shared with us that one of the elected officials may have added an item to committee. So I think that would be the perfect forum for you all. The MBNA, and Oscar has been a great leader on this charge. Definitely stay in tune with that committee, because that committee and that forum where you all could.
Did this item make it to committee, Kevin? I'm not sure. I know the concession item did. But
I think somebody had shared, I don't know if it was Oscar, but we could get more information. I believe there was an item that was going to committee. It hasn't been heard yet, but I believe somebody had requested it. So I think stay tuned on that front. And then as the city enters its budget season, like Rodney said, these are major capital improvements, and those are your forums to make those asks. And I think that's the appropriate place to have the discussion of this placemaker, like you shared.
Thank you so much. Any comments or questions from our members before we close this item? Okay, we're going to move on to the next item, which is other concessions. In February of 2022, we had a concern that there were large vehicles and large structures on the beach. We also have a concern that there's certain hotels or condominiums that may have 20 chairs and others that have much less units within their condo or within their hotel, and they have 200 chairs. And so we were wondering what is the formula for having concessions and chairs and items on our beach, and how those formulas align with the sustainability goals and the resiliency goals of our city, and how we can better protect our beaches and our waterfront. And so that's how this conversation started. From my understanding, the city wanted to get through some of those renewals. They wanted to basically take care of day-to-day business first, and then revisit this topic and look at how to possibly amend to prevent larger vehicles or structures that may be not benefiting the community as a whole, or that would do more damage than good. I'm not really sure how to, what's the correct terminology, but basically it was being revisited and there would be a new draft. And MBNA over the last 6 months has been asking, where is this draft? It's been, again, about 5 to 6 months at that point, and we wanted to see something. We still haven't received anything. We were hoping that this item could be a main item at our beach and water quality working group meeting this month in January, and working groups are just for that, to really dive in deep into those documents. This is not the right forum for it, but I did want to bring it up and have an update, and also invite all of our members to be able to join that forum later this month if that's of interest to them. Is there somebody, is that Frank or somebody else that might be able to provide that update?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Frank Garcia, Facilities Management Division Director with the city. The current version of the rules and regulations for beachfront concession operations was circulated to the MBNA through Mr. Oscar Vasquez, I believe, in August. And we're waiting on feedback. I believe our beach maintenance director followed up again in September on, some concrete feedback that we can incorporate into the 6th version. Once we receive the feedback and it's incorporated into the manual, we'll take the draft of the 6th amendment of the rules and regulations to the neighborhood public safety and quality of life committee, then ultimately to city commission for adoption.
I think what happened was that what we were looking at, or the draft that we had received, didn't include the permitting process. Is that correct? For the chairs, could you walk me through that?
I'm not prepared to speak to the permitting process specific to the chairs this evening. Go ahead, Kevin. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, and so Anne Marie and we were looking into this earlier today, following our call. We wanted to make sure we were prepared for you all. And I hadn't realized when we had spoken, like Frank said. So what our team did was they provided the 5th Amendment. And like I had mentioned earlier, when we first tackled this situation, we were talking about the chairs and the vehicles that were on the beach, and that was last February. And what their team had to do was they had to complete the renewals by a certain date, which they did, and then they focus on the amendment. The amendment will be the 6th amendment to the contract. So what John did was he circulated with Oscar, and I think Alicia was also copied. I think it was actually in October. He had followed up before that, but that 5th Amendment is what we could work off of with the MBNA. And like you mentioned, in the January working group, maybe, and you just shared it in the chat here for anyone who hasn't seen it. If you download, that's the full 5th Amendment rules and procedures, and you could look through that. And this is where we would appreciate feedback on what you think needs to change. In respect to the chairs, I don't know off the top of my head where exactly this is, but I know in the past what we've spoken about. When it comes to chairs, it's dictated, and Frank, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's dictated by the upland property. The upland property, the size of that property, let's say it's 100 feet. Within that 100 feet, they could place chairs X amount of space in between each other. So if you could fit 100 chairs in your 100 feet, then you could have your 100 chairs. When you move along MidBeach, you have larger properties. Those larger properties, if they have 1,000 feet and they could fit 1,000 chairs, then that's where I think MBNA really wanted to have a clear line in the sand, if you will, that every property should have either an equal amount of chairs, or and that's the feedback we would appreciate from the neighborhood as we move through the process. So I think maybe in January, in that working group meeting, we could dissect this, And now that you shared it in the chat, if anyone has comments on the Fifth Amendment, those are things that would be included in the Sixth Amendment. And this item's also going to a committee.
So thanks so much, Kevin, for bringing that to my attention. In going back there, it looks like that there not only was suggestions for revisions for this, but that there would definitely need to go before commission for any changes to happen. And I think, Frank, that's what you're referring to, that once you receive all of the feedback, that then it would go to committee, and then committee would make a decision and refer it to commission if needed.
Yeah. And sorry, Frank, if you want to comment on that, but
go ahead.
That's typically that's how our process, and specifically at the MBNA's request, for those of you that are new to this conversation, we didn't want to, rush to committee and you all hadn't seen a document. So part of the process is gathering feedback from the neighborhood. And then when that feedback is incorporated, it goes to committee. It will be discussed at committee, the electeds and commissioners, if they have comments, or at that time, maybe one of the hotels or condominiums may have concerns with what's being proposed. So that's going to be the opportunity where we received feedback from the neighborhood, and we might have separate feedback from the hotels and the condominiums. That's where we could actually hash that out and make that discussion. Then once it's baked at committee, then it would go to city commission. And typically once it gets to city commission, granted, if it's not a controversial item, it would probably get approved, and then his team could go ahead and implement it.
Kevin, who are the other stakeholders aside from condominiums and hotels?
I think you mostly have condominiums and hotels. I believe there's a handful of, I don't want to call them there's membership groups. And that was one of the questions that had come up, I believe, in your area. The Bath Club was a former hotel that eventually formed into a membership. You have properties like Soho House where they have memberships. And I think that was actually, going back to our conversations in February, that was one of the biggest discussions was, if you're a property and you only have, let's say, 100 units, but now you have memberships, how is that implemented into the rules and procedures? So those are some of the things we're updating going into the Sixth Amendment.
One of the pictures that a member shared with me, they sent several pictures this morning, and what they showed was there was a property in the 5,000 block, or yes, 5,000 block, that had just lines and lines of chairs, but nobody was there. And so I think that was also a concern that the members were talking about. How do you regulate, allowing can folks just put those all out when they're close to public spaces? If somebody wants to use a public walkaway and use the beach, if folks are putting on the chairs when they're as need be basis, so how many can folks put out ahead of time?
I think I remember a question, and Charlotte actually just put something in the chat that also was about some of the chairs. And going back to the last time we had discussed it, one thing that's important to note is the beach is public. So while it may be uncomfortable, if there are chairs in an area, residents are still allowed, and I wouldn't encourage anybody, you cannot touch private property and moving of chairs, but if there are space, there may be chairs. A lot of times what I see is, and I guess before I go there, what I want to mention is the mean high water line. So the last time the tides came up, that's where there's a little formula, and we'll go into that in the water quality group, that dictates where the chair line can begin. So typically, if it's a high tide, there'll be some space in front of the chairs. And as a resident of the beach, I hang out on 26th Street. There we have different hotels, and there's areas in front of where they actually set up the chairs that's all open to the public. The area inside is still public beach. Typically, the way they're set up, you're not gonna, you may not want to set up next to somebody's chair, or bring your own chairs, but that's all public beach, and that is fair game. The area in front of, and I think the area in front is a little more welcoming to residents, depending if it was a high, if there's a lot of space there, you're able to set up there. But per the regulations, if they are allowed to set up their chairs you know, regardless of the number of guests that are coming that day, and most of the time they can't predict how many guests are coming. If you know, if that's something we want to discuss going into Amendment 6, we would have to have some kind of formula that's fair for them to be able to accommodate guests while also maybe anticipating, you know, deploying them as needed. That's something we would have to look into.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from members?
Just to add, Anne Marie, and I believe Alicia, and we'll confirm with her, but I think these are also on the website. So that's a place somebody could download them.
They're also on our website, and there's also language from John Ripple just above it. And then there's a long thread of exec board member conversations with concrete suggestions. And so once we hear more from our members, we'll go ahead and forward those all together. I think that.
Thank you. And again, we appreciate, you know, that the MBNA wants to look at this. That is, when you open that document, it is a contract, it's a legal document, and it's a lot of legalese. So we appreciate those of you that do take the time to review it. And then going into probably the next beach and water quality discussion with Oscar, we'll be happy to maybe hear out some of the suggestions and take the ones that, you know, Oscar and the team deem viable.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that meeting will be the third Wednesday at 4 p.m. There's new condo regulations that everybody is having to go through. Before we move on, thank you, Frank, for your discussion. And I don't believe we have anything else for facilities management. Is it correct that your title was Director of Facilities Management?
Division Director for Facilities.
Yep. What division is that?
Facilities Management Division.
Within?
Under the Facilities and Fleet Management Department. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. So then there's a fleet division and there's a facilities management division.
That's right. And there's a beach maintenance division and asset as well.
An asset. And this is not under beach maintenance? Because I thought John Ripple was part of beach maintenance.
Yes. The beach maintenance division is under facilities.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. So with the new condo regulations that are coming in, that we've heard from different members that there's a lot of there's difficulties. Some folks find it easy, they were able to get their assessments done, they feel that they'll be able to meet their requirements, and others feel that it's going to be very challenging. And aside from that, just peer-to-peer learning, knowing what our board members are thinking at the different condominiums, having an opportunity for hotel managers to speak directly with hotel managers and condominium board members to speak with condominium board members about specifically for this area for MidBeach from 24th to 63rd. There's a suggestion that has been brought up a couple of times to host a blog or to host this type of communication amongst the members through our website. And so having a topic or having something that would then be emailed to everyone and also posted on our WhatsApp chat, but having an opportunity for folks to ask questions and answer questions, etc. I wanted to see if Fran was on today's call. And if not, if anybody else has any comments or questions or wants to discuss this item further. Always a good point of reference is how would we pay for this? And so with our dues of this year, we were looking to contract out the communications. Right now, Alicia has been volunteering and hosting our website and updating our website. So having that become independent. And then also as well as just I think one of Achilles' heels of MBNA is the communication ongoing. There's so much work that goes on behind the scenes and within the working groups. And just being able to communicate better with all of our members would be something that the executive board is considering to spend the funding towards. And something like this, beginning to develop this and manage this would also go under that umbrella. Any comments or suggestions or anything to note? Okay, here none, let's move on to some of the talked a lot about the committees today already, with the Beach and Water Quality Working Group being the third Wednesday of the month. They not only are looking at concessions, which will hopefully be done within January, February, then attending the meetings, as well as they're looking at sargassum from intermediate, short-term, and long-term goals. Some of the members of the working group attended the recent Compact conference in December, and the Aspen Institute and Ideas now coming in March. They've also registered for that. And they're looking at different ways and suggestions of how we can possibly work with what we're dealing with what all the properties are dealing with, not only in maintaining and addressing it in the immediate, but long term, or how can we become more engaged. Those are the two main items for the Beach and Water Quality Working Group. For public space, it's about activating our public spaces and making the most of them in MidBeach. During 2022, the Public Space Committee changed the Indian Creek Beach Park to the MidBeach Park. They collaborated with the city's Parks Department, and thanks to the commissioners that had sponsored the item, there was a nice chunk of funding that went to building out that park, and we were able to extend the park 2/3 of its original size. And so it's much larger, it's much more amendable, and we always see it full, except the back side of it is used for beach renourishments and Art Basel, et cetera. We would like to see that space not only used for when we need it for city, for the facilities, for the beach renourishment, or for Art Basel, but during the time, how do we make it a flex space? And Commissioner Richardson had reached out to us and had brought to us some ideas and some partners that we could consider looking at what spaces might look like if we could make it along the beach walk at 46, a spot for folks to purchase food, sit down, park area, an area for pets, an area to really engage the community. The FDOT had done a great public meeting out there. I think it was the best public meeting they've ever done. But using the space a little more and just making it a gathering space. So that's some of the items that the Public Space Working Group worked on. Deborah, just handing it off to you. Is there anything that I've missed or anything else that you'd like to say for 2023?
No, but I know we do have, just want to mention that Laura Dominguez is on the phone. I think Michael Gingora also joined too. I don't see him on my screen, but I think he's on.
Thank you so much. Just, Commissioner, are you with us today, Laura Dominguez? Great. And former Commissioner Michael Gingora?
Yes, you may notice that I am in a very dark screen because I am driving back to my house from a condo meeting, but I didn't want to miss what's happening with all of you. Happy New Year. Obviously, as a resident and as a candidate for mayor, I'm very concerned about what's happening in our community, and I always want to make sure you know I'm a resource for you on all of these issues.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Gingora. I don't even know what the proper way to say that is. So anybody can correct me, please. And Commissioner Dominguez, I do see that you're with us. I'm just going to ask you to unmute and maybe say a few words if you like.
Hear me?
We can.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I couldn't figure out because I'm in with friends that are in from out of town, but I have been listening to the meeting. So hello, everybody. Thank you for.
Thank you. Thank you for making the effort to join us and listen in. So the beach walk is something that we've, Captain, I don't know, where are you with what has gotten funded, or where are we with enforcement? We keep on getting complaints. Today I received 2 emails that were intense about the beach walk, about the speed of the bicycles, about the scooters, about not seeing enough enforcement. A few months back, I had received a lot of notices that they were seeing folks enforcing the motorized vehicles on the beach walk. I was just wondering, what is your take and what's the update on that? Are you still waiting to receive more support, or where are we with this topic?
Yeah, good evening. The beach walk poses a couple difficulties for us. And one is, I mean, just its sheer size. And then, of course, the manpower issue. I'm always looking for ways to assign folks over there. But again, area 2, as you're aware, or Middle Beach, as I like to call it, is from Dade Boulevard up to 63rd Street, the islands, and Ocean to the Bay. So for that, on any given shift, I have 6 officers who are free to roam the area. I also have officers on 41st Street on a beat there. And as I'm sure most of you know, Officer Hazy, I have as the neighborhood resource officer. So freeing up those units to get out there to make the enforcement is difficult. And then getting overtime details is always a possibility. However, when I'm going from Christmas to New Year's and Halloween, and the guys are already assigned on details, it's tough. So I'm trying to put something together. It's also difficult to enforce those scooters because, as you said, the speed is high. So getting them stopped is a difficulty, but we're going to do our best. I'm going to get some people out there. I'm looking forward in the coming weeks to see if I can get some guys out specifically to address that. And the homeless out there as well, Sergeant Berrien and his crew, and I know Valerie's on here, they do a fantastic job with assisting our homeless, trying to get them off the streets into housing and sheltering, offering them assistance in any way they can. But at some point, it does come down to enforcement of the quality of life issues. So we're working on all that together. I want to put something together, make sure we have everything sound, get some guys out there who I'm going to go out there and enforce the laws rather than just be present. And that's the direction we're moving in. Right? We have spring break coming up, so I'd like to get something done before spring break gets there so we can get it in place.
Thank you, Captain, for that effort. But was there funding wasn't allocated to have additional patrol for specifically? You had mentioned there's a beat for 41st, and I know the commissioner, thanks to Commissioners Miners, really advocated for that for 41st Street. Is there anybody championing Beach Walk? I mean, everyone feels like this is an area that needs enforcement. I know the Parks Department or with the Rangers were filling in for the police officers. Is there still that collaboration happening, or is there a plan, or is there funding that's going to be approved?
We do have the park rangers out there. I think right now they cover from 23rd to 46th Street. We constantly have a manpower issue. The commission's done a great job of approving hiring more officers to get us up to our full staffing. But we're always fighting the battle of attrition. Guys are retiring, guys are moving on. So hiring new people is getting them in is a lengthy process. But as far as a full-time boardwalk detail, no, I don't think there's anything in the works. I don't know anyone who's actively pushing for it. I know, and it's not just an area 2 or Middle Beach problem. The beach walk runs obviously from the South Point all the way up to the north end of the city. So it's going to have to be a comprehensive thing, not just Middle Beach.
Well, I would hope that MidBeach would be prioritized since we're one of the only areas that don't have cameras.
Well, it's prior to, the cameras, again, that's a completely different issue. I would love to have cameras on every block. And I'm sure there's funding coming for it.
Yes, but there's areas that currently have cameras, and there's areas that you can enforce, and that folks are held accountable for their actions through those cameras. Our area in MidBeach, we have a large section in our area in MidBeach that does not have cameras, and we don't even have roads to get out. And when something happens, there's not really a lot of enforcement. And not only to say, like, are they speeding? Are they not speeding? There's always more speeding when there's less crossroads. It's like going on a highway. There's more speeding when there's less crossroads. We're in this area, there's no crossroads. And we also—
yeah, the electric bicycles, the speeding is irrelevant. They're not allowed out there regardless. If they're going 2 miles an hour or 20 miles an hour, they're not supposed to be out there. But yeah, it's a large section, and area 2 is prioritized with me. I mean, this is my district. But again, the police department's looking at it as a comprehensive response for the entire beach walk. And really, the quickest attempt at fixing it is getting officers out there on a temporary detail to enforce it. And our goal with that is to obtain voluntary compliance, not necessarily, so we don't necessarily have to have someone out there all the time. We enforce it enough, we change the times up, and keep the offenders off their feet so we can gain that voluntary compliance. But as far as, go ahead.
sorry to interrupt. Are park rangers no longer playing that role or filling that gap?
They are, but we don't, it's not like we have an army of them out there in Middle Beach. We have the one section covered of the beach walk.
And just to add to that, I've been spending some time on the beach walk a little more, at least later in the day. And I do want, to add on to that, the park rangers, and this is my personal experience, I've seen them after 6 p.m., after 8 p.m. I've seen them out there on their carts. And like the captain mentioned, it's in that southern portion of your MidBeach neighborhood association for, I believe, 24th to 46th, like he mentioned. So they are there. And if you are walking on the beach walk later into the night, you will see them. I've had experiences where there was some people not doing great things, and I've seen them interact and address them right away. And I believe, Captain, correct me if I'm wrong, but they do have radios and they have their abilities to connect with PD when they need assistance. And if there's ever a dangerous situation, they could get in touch with PD right away. But from my personal experience, I've seen them on the beach walk late at night, really, 8 to 10 p.m. Or 6 to 8 p.m., excuse me. And I've seen them addressing individuals that are doing things, we wouldn't want happening on the beach walk, and they're proactively engaging them. So I was really happy to see that. And so I just want you to know they are there. They're in the southern portion of MidBeach, but they're in MidBeach.
Thank you, Kevin. Valerie, did you have any comments on this that you wanted to share?
You know what? We have been out there, and by we I mean the city, PD, and myself with the employees that I have, that they're guys living on the shelter, and we have been talking to them, trying to convince them to set shelters. It has been very successful having those two individuals coming out with me, because since they are inside, they can share their experience. And there are some old ways that are not happening anymore in the shelters. So people, sometimes they have a bad experience in the past, so they don't want to go back to a shelter. So those guys keep telling them it's not like this anymore, it's much better, so come over. So things are improving little by little, but now with PD enforcing, certain areas, it will make a difference. I think it's going to get better. And I'm so happy to hear what the captain just said, that, they're trying to do everything before spring break. So it's really good news.
And for those of you who don't know, Valerie, like she mentioned, she works, she has, I believe, a service, right, Valerie, where you help homeless individuals. And one of the things that, that's important to note, and we probably don't highlight enough, is the city has a unified enforcement that happens either once or a couple of times a month, where they actually go out with police, with Valerie's team, and also the city's homeless and resource team. And what they do is they engage homeless individuals, and they're offering them services. And in the event, and I'm sure we've seen it in the past, if there's an encampment or something happening in the dune, their team is able, through that unified enforcement, they're able to quickly identify where it is. They offer services. And again, it's not illegal to be homeless. So when you're offered services, people can't deny it. But when we have that unified approach, we're with sanitation, we're with police, so we could clear some people out of the area and take down that encampment to ensure that they continue to move on, either off into our city, off into a program. So Valerie's been a huge asset, and also working through police and their team, because you're going to see them out there, and they've, I think just recently, they're actually doing, we have new resources on police and also homeless services, where we're having 24-hour shifts. So you're having very late night details going out. So it's a great asset that hopefully you'll see some improvements come from that.
Thank you for that update. Any comments from our board members? Questions? Any comments or questions from our general members? Okay, hear none. We're going to move on from
Anna Marie. If I could just pipe in, I won't repeat. Thank you, by the way, for that report. And Captain Baldwin and I speak regularly, so thank you for that information. I do have an item, though, that's going to be discussed soon at the Public Safety Committee that you heard reference to about safety on the beach walk, including.
When is that public safety meeting?
So I'm actually working on the agenda for January. It's either January or February, but I'll know by tomorrow. I can follow up with you and let you know. But it would be great if you or somebody from MBNA obviously could be on and discuss it. That's obviously the forum for it. So.
Certainly, and we'll also share it with our members that I keep on
And
asking.
then Maria, I have one question for the police captain when he was talking about the homeless. So lately, I've been seeing them actually camp, that's the camping out on the beach. So is that permitted by the city to actually put up tents and live on the sand?
No, it's not. And if you give us a call, we'll send them out. And as Valerie said, we have a homeless team that goes out and actively addresses that. But a lot of times we rely on folks like yourself giving us a call saying, hey, this is a tent out here. It doesn't matter if they're homeless or not. If it's some college kid on a tent, they can't be there. So we'll go out and we'll address it on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. And it's, you know, I know that you can't police or enforce the entire beach walk, but I would make a suggestion. You make such a outrageous high fine. If it's legally permissible, whoever gets caught, believe me, they will never do it again. Is that permitted?
Well, the fines are preset that we have to deal with, but I mean, they're significant. I mean, they're not, I can't tell you offhand what they are, but and in addition to that, it's not just fines, there's arrestable offenses as well that we deal with. But I mean, there's ways to, that's what I mean by gaining voluntary compliance, by enforcing laws enough that people see us enforcing and that they say, well, we're not going to deal with the consequences. We're going to just obey the laws and the ordinances as they are. But yeah, the fines are significant. I mean, they'd be, a lot of those would be under moving violations or civil infraction. So yeah, they're significant. They're not nothing to be sneezed at.
Perfect.
And on the sorry.
Go ahead.
And on the homeless issue at the last commission meeting, I think was one of the, from my perspective, since I've been on the commission, it was the toughest stance our commission as a unified agreement that we need to take tougher stand. We offer a lot of services. Valerie can attest. We offer tremendous amount of services, but ultimately a crime is a crime. And encampments, whatever it may be, we need strict enforcement. And we as a commission we've actually asked our legal team to look back and see what other measures we can look at, and also the police department to be vigilant.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Valerie, any final comment?
Yes, I just want to mention that now we have the Lazarus Project is finally here on the beach. This was approved by the commission, which I'm so super thankful for the commission. And it goes back all the way to even when Michael was in the commission, he started with that support, and we ended now. They started this week, last week, coming to the beach, which is a doctor in a van that is medicating the mentally ill. Because we have a lot of mentally ill homeless here, and it makes, I mean, it's a big percentage. And when you're mentally ill, you cannot make a rational decision of going to a shelter or going to a rehab or going to, housing. Like the commissioner said, we have a big menu, the captain said, we have a big menu of, and by we, I mean the city has a big menu of things to offer, different options, because every person is an individual, just like you and I. Every person is an individual and have different needs. And they basically have almost everything covered. But if you're not sane, you cannot make a sane decision. Once they get medicated, and I believe that in a couple of months, because it does take a little bit of time, we start seeing more difference on that aspect as well. So I'm really, really excited about all this. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. And we've placed a link that shares a little more about the project from Camila's house perspective, but it's a similar concept being applied here in Miami Beach. And so that's exciting to hear. Moving on, we have two Collins working groups. One of our chairs is with us today, Justin Jacobs, for the Collins South. So we've divided this in 2022, we divided our Collins working group into two groups. And that was because it looked like the interest of properties along Indian Creek and Collins Avenue from 24th to 41st or to 44th are different than those from 41st to 63rd along Collins and Indian Creek. In terms of transportation, there's many things that we align, and then there's aspects that were very specific to those areas, the RRR projects, the transportation designs that they were doing, the signalizations, etc. And some of the conversations we've had extensive conversations on, so we decided to separate them. Justin Jacobs chairs the South and Alicia Casanova chairs the North. There are large projects that are coming our way. We are continuously working within these working groups on those projects. And if anyone is interested in knowing or working more closely with the transportation groups or groups that are focused in these two areas, please reach out to us and we ask you to join these working groups. To date, it has predominantly been transportation related items in both of those areas. The other, there's a few projects that are what we call MidBeach wide, or that we work across, and aside from the Beach Walk Working Group, but the across we have been looking at code enforcement issues, properties that are run down, properties that are not being maintained, and thinking about what would be a good strategy to work with the city and being able to bring these properties up to code, and working with our neighbors in a friendly manner to be able to achieve that. There's access points and public space access points in working with some of our property members that either abut these, own these, or manage some of these spaces to ensure that we can have access at a reasonable time. We started that in 2022, but we're going to do some more of that in 2023. The Indian Creek project finally came to at least the roadway piece to an end in 2022, and the seawall really began. It's less disruptive, but it's still ongoing. And for those that live along that corridor or operate their hotels along that corridor, there are items that keep on coming up. And so we are monitoring it. We take videos of it. We meet as a working group as needed and discuss those items. And that's really what MBNA has been doing. That's not to say that's what we're going to necessarily do moving forward. As I mentioned, in February, we'll have that county commission meeting. In March, we'll have another virtual meeting. In April, we'll have our in-person annual meeting. It's time to change the board. It's time to change our hotel reps, our condo reps, and it's time to have new leadership in MBNA. And so if you're interested or have are willing to serve a term of 2 years or a year or a couple of years or anytime, please consider or think about the intent or receiving permission from your building to represent your building on the executive board. Those opportunities will open up in February and they'll close in March before our annual meeting in April. Are there any other topics or questions or priorities that you see that you would like to see MBNA focus more on in 2023?
Hi, Anna Marie. It's Michael. I wanted to know if this association is interested. I know we talk a lot about city issues, but there's a lot of changes in state law coming into play for associations. Number one, on February 1st, there's the new law that requires the registration of information with Miami-Dade County. There's the larger state bill about not allowing waiver of reserves and requiring milestone inspections, and lots of other things happening. Is MBNA interested in discussing those types of issues at an upcoming meeting?
Michael, thank you so much for bringing that up. So that's one of our main items for the February meeting. And as you know, MBNA participated last year in several webinar opportunities to discuss those the legislation and some of the impacts and some of the concerns that our condo members have had to date. I think that now it's becoming much more real and folks are a little more anxious about meeting these deadlines and being able to comply with what's going to be set forth. Also with just the increase in insurance pricing and the monitoring or checking at several reviews at several milestones, or even reporting back into the county. And so we wanted to discuss that with our county commissioners, and we are interested in any kind of state legislation that would impact the condo. And I speak for myself and for what I've heard from the members, but I also open it up to the executive board and to our general membership to comment. Esteban, did you have a comment on this?
Well, it's going to be nice to get Michael for the next personal meeting to talk about this important issue, because this is going to be a big problem for many condominiums and hotels, and it's going to be difficult to find a specialist because hundreds of buildings need to be recertificated, and it's going to be a lot of work, and we need the city to understand the problem is not going to be easy for many associations.
Thank you, Esteban. Any other comments?
Hi, this is Susana from Maison Grand Condo. I think it would be very interesting in that meeting to actually have a timeline of the deadlines coming up in the next year or two. So if we can get that, whether it's printed out or just spoken out, Michael, that would be really great to know where the deadlines are for which parts.
Sure. And this is just to be clear for everybody, this is for community associations, not for hotels. This is new legislation for associations.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Susanna. And on our website, we did have this. This is also found on our website, and so I can send everybody the link to some of the information and that we have gathered over this past year on this topic. Any other comments or questions? Okay, so I think we've discussed the future meetings, the goals and aims of our working groups, our three particular old business items, and our welcomes and introductions. So going back to the bottom of our agenda, there's no other items for today. I'll stay on. This meeting is adjourned, but I'll stay on and welcome all of you to stay or ask any questions that you may have. Thank you all for joining.